Oh, beautiful for spacious skies. For
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray. Jerem. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge and invocation by Councilmember Ben Gray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a favorite prayer that I like to say from time to time. It helps keep me grounded most of the time, and I would like to share it with you. It's just simply the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity, or grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen. City Clerk certifies publication in Daily Record, the official newspaper of the City of Omaha, on May 16, 2014. Notice for a pre-council and regular City Council meetings, May 20, 2014. A current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the Legislative Chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Omaha City Council. This meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The Council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it's not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions only detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic devices.
Zoning ordinances on final reading and planning board attachments. Item 5 is an ordinance to rezone property located at 3814 Farnham Street from GC General Commercial District to NBD Neighborhood Business District. A is planning board and planning department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 5 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The ordinance is passed 7-0. Items 6 and 7 will take up together. Item 6 is an ordinance to rezone property located northwest of 80th Street and West Dodge Road from R7 Medium Density Multiple Family Residential District and GC General Commercial District to CC Community Commercial District. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 7 is an ordinance to approve a development agreement with Vistas LLC providing site development standards for property northwest of 80th Street and West Dodge Road.
Public hearing on numbers 6 and 7 are today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council, Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. I'm really here to answer any questions that you might have, but this cleans up kind of a mishmash of zoning at this particular location and will allow for the development of this particular corner. And we've had neighborhood meetings and good planning board meetings, and we're here before you today seeking your approval. So with that, happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
The ordinances are passed 7-0. We'll take items 8 through 11. Item 8 is an ordinance to rezone property located northeast of 192nd and Leavenworth Street from AG to R6. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 9 is an ordinance to approve the planned unit development. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 10 is a resolution to approve the plat entitled Grove Ridge located northeast of 192nd and Leavenworth Streets. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 11 is a resolution approving the subdivision agreement for Grove Ridge. We do have a request that these items be laid over 4 weeks to June 17.
So moved.
Roll call.
And we'll continue the public hearing.
Continue the public hearing.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Jerem.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
They're over 4 weeks. Resolutions for preliminary plats, and subdivision agreements. Item 12 is a resolution approving the preliminary plat entitled Elk Ridge Replat 8, located east of Elk Ridge Drive and Seward Street. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval, and we do have a request from the developer to withdraw this resolution.
Motion to withdraw. Motion to allow withdrawal.
Roll call.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
Resolution is withdrawn, 7-0. Item 13 is a resolution that the preliminary plat entitled Pacific Village, located northwest of 192nd and Pacific Streets, along with attached conditions, is hereby approved. It's over from 5/13/14 and continue the public hearing. A is Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is a formal protest submitted by Jerry Slusky. C is a legal opinion submitted by the Law Department. D is a communication submitted by Kevin Irish representing Pacific Renaissance. E is a communication opposing. They're all over from May 13th.
Public hearings continued today on number 13, and because it's continued, we'd request that proponents and opponents address new information that we didn't discuss last time we had this case. I know there is a lot of new information based on neighborhood meetings that occurred. So with that, proponents, please. Mr. Halverson.
Thank you. Doug Halverson, 2111 South 67th Street. I'm a landscape architect with Olson Associates, and you're right. There has been a lot of progress, I think, from the public hearings that the public meetings we had inviting the neighborhoods. But again, just briefly, we have 192nd Street that runs north-south on this image. The east-west is Pacific Street. The area in kind of the burnt yellow is Pacific Village. The area next to it is the mixed-use area, and I think we've talked a lot about why this mixed-use area has the 250 apartments next to it and that kind of thing. So if we want to go over that, we certainly can, but I'm here to answer a lot of the questions that we addressed at the neighborhood meetings. So again, this was the submittal that we discussed at the last public hearing in front of the council. We had 205 units on this 9.6 acres. They were 3-story, 30-plex units. And we heard from the neighbors that they really preferred to have a 2-story model or less units or something. And Kevin can talk to this if you want to ask him the questions, but he went back to the owner and asked for a price reduction because we were not going to get this many units. And that was accomplished. And we came back to the neighbors with various options. We discussed some of these options at the last hearing. Again, 192nd is north-south, Pacific is east-west. The buildings you see in this plan are all 2 stories. They're a combination of townhomes and stacked flats. Everybody has a garage. This is the same footprint that is in Exarban. Not the big buildings at the corner, but the ones interior. They're handsome little buildings built around a courtyard. So this green courtyard in the middle, with the parking around the edges. This meets all the requirements of R5 zoning, except in R5 zoning you can only have 4 units together at a time. These are 20-unit buildings. So this would be an R6 plan, but it's still all 2-story. 141 units on this plan. The consensus from the neighborhood, as we talked about it, they kind of feel like a barracks. They're really handsome little buildings, but they just lay out so severely on this sloped site that it'd be difficult to make them look good. So we discussed another option. That was 141 units. This one is 133 units. 2 different styles of building here. The buildings are smaller, so they can float down the site better, and we'll discuss the site again because there were some questions on that. The darker colored buildings, rather than the 30 plexes we were showing before, those buildings on this plan are still 3-story buildings. The rest, from the view of 192nd and from the view of from Pacific, are all 2-story buildings. They have integral garages. The model for this is the project at 156th and Pacific by Mama's Pizza. It's called The Tradition at Pacific Crossing. I did that project there. They're considered, luxury units because everybody does have a 1 or 2 car attached garage. The garage door goes down behind you. You walk into your kitchen, either upstairs or downstairs. Dr. Kuhn really didn't like the idea of having the 2-story building next to him. This is Dr. Kuhn's property. He'll be speaking today. That 2-story building is 3-story building, thank you. 3-story building is 25 units. Since the 2-story buildings are 10 and 11 plexes, I can replace those 25 units with 21 units. So this is 130 units plan, and this is the plan that we would like to submit a PUD for. Kevin has said he would do a PUD on this project. We've talked a lot about what that means. It is a lot of work. We understand that. But we understand that that's probably the best thing to do in this case. So we've gone from 205 units to 130, plus the PUD. So that's the discussions we've had with the neighbors. The neighbors have been concerned about drainage. I'll show you this. This is a very simplified graphic of the way the site lays today, topographically. So the corner of 192nd and Pacific, that elevation is actually 45 right here, so it's basically 46, 48. 70 is the extreme elevation, so very little bit of it. It goes from basically 65 to 45. There's still 20 feet of grade change across that. We've talked before on this product of a 10-plex, because of the garages on the ends and in the middle and the sides, every place, they really need to have a relatively flat site. So I'll get into what that does for the grading on this. And then the natural grades, this is all natural grades. This is the way it lays today, from 70 to 65 to 60 and down to 50. The intersection of Marcy and this site is elevation 60. That's the magic number on this site. We are going to grade to get to that intersection elevation to create a flat site. The natural, if the pond overflowed, the pond elevation 65 runs around there, and then the natural swale is right there. So imagine this from 70 to 65 to 60 to 55. We will be grading the site. Obviously leaving that portion of the site alone. It's not our property. Right at 70, it'll go to 65 in the 30-foot buffer. It'll drop down below the Dr. Kuhn's residence and meet up at the lake again there. There's a big red dot where it touches the ground. Again, there's a dot here where it touches 65. And then some of the dirt that's here will be taken and filled out to create a great big, relatively 2% graded flat spot to build this project. The neighbors are concerned about the height. Elevation 60 is there, 45 is there. It's just the way it is. It's the way the site lays now. Right now, the site is at 65 and 60. I've left 60 where it is. I've just cut back the dirt and we're going to be soil and going to be using it for berming. The pond area in blue is the sense of scale that I legally need to preserve the stormwater quality basins and the overflow to city standards. It's not a very big area. We're talking about doing a larger area. We have lots of green spaces through this, and there would be an area there that would become a rain garden along Pacific Street. So that is in a nutshell of many of the things we've discussed. I'm going to leave this information up here for the opponents to use. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just need the last
This one? Okay.
Are there any other proponents that want to speak today?
Kevin Irish, 5416 South 169th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68135. As Doug has done a nice job, we have met with the neighbors twice. We were possibly expecting to meet a third time. First of all, thank you for laying us over from last week. We had a misunderstanding on our part. But this showed a progression of what we've done. We went from what we thought we could have at 250 units down to 205 units. At the last meeting, I'd mentioned maybe we'd limit it at 185 units with nothing but 2 stories. We went down to 141 units. We're down to 133 units. Now we're down to 130 units. I think that we have done a lot to really quell the neighbors' concerns. All the buildings are 2-story with the exception of the one that backs up to Nicely, and Susan's here today to probably address that. We really feel good about this because it's a neighborhood concept. We'll have decorative lighting. I promise the neighbors will do twice the required landscaping, what we need to do. All the units, we have eliminated most of the surface parking because most of these units have garages for each unit, so we don't have the dense surface parking that we had last time. And as you can see on this corner here, we have much enlarged the water detention cell that the Ridge's neighbors have been very concerned about. So we've enlarged that numerous times. We want to be a good neighbor. We will have to do fencing and or berming on these pieces. I did talk to Travis Teeter from the Pacific Point, the president of the Pacific Point Homeowners Association, that I'll do trees at least 2 deep on this area, which is much heavier. So I think that eliminates this eliminates most of the neighbors' concerns. We will apply for a PUD, as that was a concern for the neighbors, so they'll see what's being built. We're pretty excited about the project, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to come back up or answer them now.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents that want to speak?
Hi, my name is Susan Nicely. I live at 930 South 192nd Street, joining this property. So let's see. So this is my home right in here. And over the last 7 years, we've lived there now 10 years. We've had several developers and builders come and ask us about our property. And in that time frame, I've probably met with the city planners maybe a dozen times. Always asking them what would be allowed within our area. And their reference is always to the city master plan. Well, this is what the city master plan tells us we can do on this corner. So my expectation for what the development might be in this area has been what the city has always told me. And what they've said is it would be a possible 20% variance of the mixed use that's already given to the corner over here, which is the Grove MU corner. So that's 10 acres, and so there's a possible 20% to be brought over, as well as 250 units allowed for R6 zoning, which is in the rules of the master plan, something that has to be adjacent to mixed use. So anything higher than that, you would have to have a higher density of mixed use. This is a convenience corner. With a convenience corner, you're allowed 250 units. So that's been my expectation. So because of those reasons, I have not felt like I had any grounds to stand in protest against this. From what I've seen, this developer has gone above and beyond what is required of him according to the city master plan as far as making accommodations for the neighbors. He's being asked to improve the roads. I know other developments that aren't being asked to improve roads. There's a concern with traffic at 192nd and Pacific. I believe within the city master plan at its inception when they developed this corner, I went to the city engineers department and they said that this corner would eventually be 2 5-lane intersections. So when we bought our property 10 years ago, we knew that this was going to be a busy corridor. Now it's not a major arterial, which would allow 500 mixed use or multifamily units, but on a minor arterial, It's accommodating at least another 250 multifamily higher density of dwelling units. So my understanding is the roads and that the developer is also improving the road. So it's not going to be a cost to the taxpayer. He's adding another lane. So in here there's going to be an additional lane for turning, and in here he's adding an additional lane, which will stop at the Kuhn's property. So because the Kuhn's aren't developing at this time. So anyhow, he is improving those things, and I think, as far as I can tell, that this meets all of what the city master plan is. And I have quotes from pages and line in the city master plan. I don't want to bore you with that if you feel comfortable with what I'm saying is verifiable. It's what I've been told and what I've referred to. So that's all I have for now.
Great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there other proponents today? Seeing none, opponents, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Fred Baker, 1214 South 194th Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68130. I'm one of the neighbors that appeared the first time we talked about this project. I just want to clarify a couple things. First of all, the statement was made that this is the design that was shared with the neighbors. I just want to clarify, seeing it up here on the screen is the first time I've seen this design. The statement was made that there were 2 meetings with the neighbors. There were, in fact, 1 meeting over 2 nights. He did try and accommodate the neighbors that couldn't make it one night by offering a second night, but I believe if you go back to the council record, the recommendation was meet with us, hear our input, and meet with us again. And that second meeting never did occur. Okay. I apologize for this. I was hoping to have an electronic file, but I didn't get a chance to get it done. But on behalf of the surrounding neighbors, and I don't mean to speak for all of the homeowners, but I believe that everybody agrees with this. We truly believe that Pacific 192, as it's now called, should not be approved. What the City Council said on April 15th was that there should be nothing considered over 2 stories high. It should, in fact, be less than 205 units, and it should include a PUD. So it's our contention that he's met part of the intent of the council, and yes, part of the intent of the neighbors or the desires of the neighbors, but not all. There is still 1 building that remains over 2 stories. And again, on April 15th, I believe the intent was that there would be 0 buildings over 2 stories. It is, in fact, less than 205 units, which we requested. We bantered about a lot of different numbers for units, and honestly, he's done a very good job of reducing it. And obviously, the 130 now, sorry, it was 133 the last design I saw. The 133 units obviously is less than 205, but it still works economically. And then the PUD that he talked about, he has offered a PUD. Nobody can dispute that. You saw no photographs today like you did last time. You saw no floor plans. Last time he talked about an upscale, top-end apartment complex. He talked about granite and many other things. He put none of that forward today. There's no elevations on what the exterior of the buildings look like. You heard a lot of words about, yes, it's like this, it has garages, so on and so forth. Our concern as neighbors is that if you approve this today with a PUD, there is absolutely nothing to stop him from going low end, to changing the exterior design. The only thing he's tied to, I think, is the layout of the buildings. And so we're concerned about that, the fact that there is not any details associated with this proposed PUD. Now, I had a handwritten map, and now I see that the numbers are too small, you can't read them, and I apologize for that. The message with this slide is, if you approve this development, and my numbers are off because it's now down to 130 units instead of the 133 noted, that there are in fact 1,208 new apartments within a 3/4 mile long stretch of 192nd Street north of Pacific that have been proposed. We had a lot of discussion last time about right turn only, but that's scheduled for 2020 or later. So ultimately, if you look at the west side of the road, there'll be 505 units that have been announced as part of the huge development just on the south side of Dodge. The 130 units now, that all of that traffic will be headed south towards the intersection of Pacific. And then the Grove, which was just delayed, it's my understanding, is 220 units for Phase 1, 330 for Phase 2. And so until the road improvements are made, some of those will be headed south as well. So the intersection of 192nd and Pacific is going to become very, very busy, which they acknowledge. It's our recommendation that you not approve this today, that you, in fact, if you are not going to reject it today, that you carry it over yet again and require him to come up with elevations, floor plans, and specifications so that the PUD that he is proposing will be meaningful. To once again reinforce a maximum of 2 stories, okay? Doug talked about the elevations. We're still looking at 15 feet from the bottom or the middle of the intersection to the bottom of the elevation at that most southeast corner of the plot, and then you add the elevation of the buildings on top of that. So it's still going to be rather imposing. The 135 units, which is a number he used one time, or it may be a typo, I apologize, it should probably be 133 units, which is what we talked about, but allow that to be the maximum for the site because he's admitted with his proposal that even 130 units will work economically. We would ask that you require a traffic island be installed immediately on 192nd Street to force the right turn only. Yes, it's going to flow all the traffic to south to 192nd and Pacific, but it will allay the concern of somebody, because there's only one ingress and egress point at this point in time. And to have that many comings and goings, somebody mentioned seven comes and goes per day per unit. If any of those people try and turn left across 192nd Street to go north, it is a busy street, and I think that increases the risk of personal injury, accident, or even worse. So we would ask a traffic island be required to force all the traffic south to the intersection so that we can at least have the light contribute, or the traffic signal contribute to the safety. Kevin offered 2 rows at our 2 rows of trees or landscaping. At our neighborhood meeting with him, we requested 3 rows, and that those 3 rows match what's currently existing on the west of that property along Pacific Street. You heard Kevin say either a fence or a berm. Well, there is a lake behind this apartment, and I suspect that there will be children in the apartment as well. And many of us are concerned about the safety of those children. And so we would again like to propose to the City Council, if they are going to approve this proposal, that they require an 8-foot-high metal fence. It's like wrought iron, but a metal fence, the full length of the west side and the north side of the property, because those are the 2 sides of the property that are closest to that lake. That is for the safety of the children, so that they don't inadvertently end up in the lake with the worst kind of tragedy that you can imagine. We would also propose, to help with the traffic situation, that the developer pay for a left turn signal in all 4 directions at 192nd Street. The traffic is going to go up appreciably. The city shouldn't be penalized for that because he's the one that's going to make the economic gain. So he ought to share in that. So we would propose the left-hand turn signal be paid for by the developer. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the PUD We need some details. Just saying that there will be a PUD with this elevation isn't really protective of us as neighbors, our property values, or anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents, please.
My name is Travis Teeter, 19309 Briggs Street. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association in Pacific Point, which is on the south edge of the property. Just to echo kind of what was stated already, I do agree that we had the 2 meetings that were supposedly required by you guys. They were back-to-back nights. There was really no follow-up beyond that. Myself, I actually contacted Kevin. It was April 15th was the meeting here. I contacted Kevin on April 24th because no one had heard anything from him in 10 days to inquire about whether we're going to actually meet or not. At that point in time, he set up the 2 meetings in May, back-to-back nights, and then beyond that, once he kind of established that we were going to have meetings after that, I really didn't hear anything else. There have been other people in the neighborhood that have got correspondence from him that has been forwarded on to myself as far as doing a PUD, doing different things that he's proposing today. But none of that has been shared with the neighborhoods surrounding other than with specific individuals and then subsequently forwarded on. He had all of my contact information, didn't receive any information. Concerns that we have as far as from a Pacific Point standpoint, our neighborhood, and Kevin did address it as far as landscaping along the south side and the east side of the property, so we don't have a lot of light and spillover into the neighborhood as far as noise and light pollution. He's talked about the 2 rows of trees. We would like 3 rows of trees if at all possible. And the issue as far as traffic safety and stuff goes, I know this has kind of been belabored here. Just yesterday when going home, there was another accident yet again at 192nd Pacific. When I went home, there was a car sitting on the northeast corner of the intersection waiting for a tow truck to come, and the tow truck was hauling off the other car that had been in the accident. So I'm not quite sure where the numbers that the city gets. I don't know if it's every single accident reported at the intersection or only injury accidents, but there are a considerable number of accidents at this intersection. So as far as the traffic department and traffic numbers go, I really would implore you guys to look deeper into that, not only for this intersection, but other intersections as far as if numbers are really accurately being reported, because we see it on a daily basis. I mean, it seems like every week we drive by, there's another major accident at the intersection, but yet then the city says there's only 2 or 3 accidents in a year at the intersection. So I'm not quite sure where the numbers, why they aren't jiving. One question I have, and actually this would be for the developer and kind of for you guys to ponder as well, they keep talking about these need to be on flat lots and flat areas. He's talked about kind of the grading over here in the corner, and you now have a unit sitting here in the corner of the property where he's talking about a 5 to 10 foot drop in grade, but yet he's telling you that it needs to be a flat grade in the area. So I question whether that can actually be in place if that's not a flat grade, because they keep telling us and harping that this needs to be a flat area, and he just showed us elevations that show a 10-foot drop from here to here. So I question the feasibility of this apartment complex, or this apartment building right here. The PUD, like they've stated, the only thing that we have ever saw conceptually throughout this whole process is overhead shots. We saw the 205 shot. We saw the barracks looking 141 shot. We saw the 135, 133. This is the first time I have yet seen this as well, and I was at the last meeting that we had with Kevin. So this is yet another new concept that he continues to present. So we have not seen any elevations. We have not seen any floor plans, any kind of mock-ups of what the exteriors of the buildings, anything along those lines is going to look like. So I agree with the PUD. I'm happy that he's agreeing to do a PUD, but yet he's really not supplying any information to the neighbors whatsoever as far as what's going to be in the PUD, other than saying we're going to have a PUD in place. And the final thing is I do want to commend Kevin. I have been very happy that he has been working with us. I feel there's still more work to do. I am very happy that we've dropped from where we were in unit number down to where we are. We've dropped down in building height from 3 stories to 2 stories, all but 1 building now. I think it's progressing in the right direction. I would just ask that at this point in time, I think that we can most likely get to a good consensus as far as between the developer and the surrounding neighbors, but it is going to take more time, and that's what I would like to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents, please. How many more folks intend to speak? If you just raise your hands. Okay, one more. Thank you.
Bruce Kuhn, 19330 Pacific Street. This is a picture of the accident that happened yesterday. I was driving home, and this is a picture I took of a lady and her child whose car was hit there. And this is a picture that I took as I approached this intersection. So the things that Fred had asked you to do with the turn signals, we would really appreciate that. We know that that's not a multi-million-dollar project. Those turn signals would be great, because that's why this accident happened, because there was not a left turn signal going east on Pacific Street, and they tried to turn north. So we'd appreciate the city potentially putting those turn signals in, as well as the possible curb on Marcy Street. This is the first time I've seen this drawing that Kevin has shown us today, or Doug. The letter that I sent each of you, I hope all of you received it. I got verification that some of you had, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Thompson. I wrote this letter Friday and sent it to you Friday. And the first that I knew that this plan was in place was Sunday afternoon. So there really was very little chance for us to have another meeting with Kevin to discuss that. And he has made some concessions to us, and we appreciate that. But I would like him to change and to go with what his word was at the last meeting, to go to 2 stories, to go with the suggestions of the council. He's also agreed to do a PUD, but again, I won't repeat what they had said about us being able to see what is in the PUD. The other thing that I would like to see, and Fred discussed this, was the fence along the west side of the property and the north side of the property. Kevin had agreed to that. One of the residents at Fire Ridge had asked Kevin what he was going to do about kids floating over into the adjacent properties of the Dailies and my property. And Kevin said that he had already told me that he would do a metal fence, which he hadn't told me, but he said that he would do that and agreed to do that. And now I think that's something he's balking at, but I'd like to take him at his word that he would do that. So I think if we can get rid of the 3-story building that's left, and some of the other suggestions that were made, we would really appreciate that. I took a straw poll at the meetings, at the meeting that we had on the 7th. There was nobody that was for any of these projects. We'd like you to vote it down, period, because of the sprawl and what this does to our community. We realize that voting for this is kind of like getting hit by a bus or a car. You're going to be dead no matter what, and we have to make evidently a choice. But I'd like you to vote this down, period, and end this, because we'd like to have single-family homes there. And so I guess you have 2 things to think about. We tried to work with him, and we'd like your vote.
And the last opponent there, please.
My name is Susan Ramsey. I live at 2230 South 183rd Circle. I'm the current president of the Ridges Homeowners Association. That's the neighborhood just southeast of the proposed development. I don't have a lot to add to what the other speakers have said. I did have a question. I wasn't sure when Kevin or Mr. Halverson we're talking about the units went from 25 to 21. Did that mean they went from 3-story to 2-story? Because I would definitely be more supportive of all 2-story. Otherwise, I think he honestly has made what seems like a pretty stunning compromise and brought the number of units down. So as long, I'm not sure exactly how a PUD works, but as long as there were, something in place that would require that it be built to some kind of standard that we've all talked about, I'm not going to repeat all the issues, then I would be comfortable with that. I can't speak for every resident in the Ridges, but I know the people that are, the residents that are closest to this development, they would have the same concerns of lighting, noise, traffic, drainage, that kind of thing. Some of those I know are city issues, so I would ask on behalf of our residents that maybe somehow the budget can find some money to make some of these improvements to go along with all the development. But otherwise, anything else that you would require any other developer to do in town, in the suburbs, business, residential, that he also be required to do, whether it's additional turning lanes or protected lights for left-hand turns, that kind of thing. So I don't really have anything else to add other than thank you all very much for taking the time last month and again today to hear everybody's concerns. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to close public hearing, and I see we have a light on. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, if I could have Mr. Fanslow come up.
Good afternoon. Dave Fanslow, City Planning.
Dave, for the record, people are saying, have been saying the last hearing and in this hearing that the master plan allows for 250 units, when in reality that number is a little bit smaller, isn't it?
It is. The intersection, the master plan allows for 250 at the intersection.
Mm-hmm.
There are already there's 32 units on the northeast corner. So technically this site you could get up to 218 or 220 tops.
Okay, so for the record, we're going from 220 that is allowed to 205 that was presented a couple of weeks ago to the proposed 185, which is what this council was working on, to the surprise 130. Those are the numbers we're dealing with.
Correct.
Okay. Could you talk to us about the whole deal of, or the whole matter of a preliminary plat versus a final plat, and at what point do you need the PUD? Do you need the PUD now, or can you get the PUD later?
Well, ideally it would have came in with the preliminary plat, so we had a chance to review that along with the plat. In this case, to lock down the development as shown in these plans, we would need the PUD before the final could be acted on. So if the council wants to require a PUD on this site and the applicant's willing to do that, then the preliminary plat could be approved with the condition that before the final comes to the council, the applicant make an application to go to the planning board with the PUD.
Now, would that PUD come in separate from the final plat or at the same time as the final plat? Could we have 2 more meetings or just 1 meeting?
You could just have 1 more.
Is it up to the council?
I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to ask Paul if he has an opinion on that. But we could accept the PUD application with the final plat application, or the PUD could come first and then be followed up with the final. I don't think it matters to us.
Citizens are saying that they want to know the elevations, the floor plans, the materials used, and so if those things are not included in the PUD, this council can reject it, right?
Correct. Actually, yes, they could, but before it would get to you, those things you talked about are requirements of the PUD application. Mm-hmm. So if the application came in without the required documentation, site plans, elevations, landscape plans, stuff like that,
you wouldn't even forward it to us.
It wouldn't get through planning board without that stuff.
Okay. So the citizens who are concerned about PUD issues, you will take care of those, and then the council will double check and make sure that those things are met, those criteria are met.
Correct.
Okay, left turn signal. What do you think about that? Talk to me about your.
Well, I guess I defer to Bob or Murphy on the traffic issues for this.
Would you just stay there, please?
Sure.
Bob, or let's have Murphy come up.
Murthy Koti, Traffic Engineering, Public Works Department.
Could you talk to me about the viability of left turn signals?
Yes, we have several criteria. We call them warrants that we have to evaluate before installing a left turn signal at any intersection in town. This is no different. So we would be more than happy to go back and take a look at this intersection and see if those left turn warrants are met under the existing conditions, as well as in the future proposed conditions with this project.
Okay, and would you have those findings by the time we get the final plat, or you could?
Yes.
Let's say if it warrants it, who's going to pay for it, the city or the developer?
It depends. If those warrants are met without this project, just with the ambient growth into the future, it has to be paid by the city.
Okay.
If this project trips that warrant, it triggers the need for those left turn signals, then we would expect the developer to pick up those costs as part of the infrastructure improvements.
And for the record, you'll make sure that you have that fleshed out for us?
Yes.
Before the final plat?
That's correct. We will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thanks for staying close, just in case if anyone else has a question. Ms. Nicely?
Susan Nicely, 930 South 192nd Street.
Would you point to your residence again?
Sure. So this is our home right here. I'll pull it down. You can see our property. So the 1/4 mile turn will go onto our property here. Eventually, that's going to be a full turn access. So when I went to the city engineer's office, they said that there would be an island eventually, 25 years down the road, that would go up to the 1/4 mile turn that would then direct traffic. And whenever this property gets improved, that would handle that.
Okay. Do you have any druthers or any angst about the dark pink area being 3 stories?
No.
Point to it.
Right
Make
here.
Sure
It's 3 stories. Yeah, that's right behind our home, but...
Are you okay with that?
That's fine. Sure.
Okay. Don't go too far. Murthy, if I could have you come back.
Murthy Koti, Public Works.
So when we develop that full turn and that street extending, you're saying that's when we'll have the island?
Yes, in the future, when this connection is made here, at that point, we would potentially look at restricting the movements here, or alternatively, when the street project comes through the widening of 192nd Street, then we would build a median automatically at this intersection. We cannot allow left turns on a 5-lane section in the future. So hence, we will have a median restricting that left turns in the future to cross 5 lanes.
And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when you say future, are we talking about an 8-year plan, a 10-year plan, just round figures, not that you have to stick to them?
Well,
what's your ideal that you'd like to shoot for in getting that island?
Well, I mean, we know that this time in our CIP, which is a 6-year program, we do not have any project programmed in it for the next 6 years. Anything beyond the 6-year program is very fluid. Our needs are so high that, and then there's not enough available funding for transportation that I do not expect any widening of 192nd in this part of town for the next 10 years, I would think at least.
192nd won't be widened for another 10 years.
That's just my crystal ball.
Okay. If there's a new development north on the Nicely land, then that could trigger it earlier.
Potentially.
Okay.
Potentially, those are some of the proposals that we will have to evaluate from a traffic standpoint and see what impacts they would have. And then, just like this particular proposal is required to widen Pacific, this section of Pacific Street to a 3-lane section, we would evaluate any new projects in this part of town for traffic impacts and the need for associated infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Irish.
Kevin Irish, 5416 South 169th, Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, Kevin. I heard you say a berm or a fence. Can we nail it down? Can you get an 8-foot fence on the west and north side?
Yes.
And that's part of the record, and you're going to do that?
I will do that.
Okay. If the city finds...
Excuse me, 1 minute, Mr. Thompson. Oh, Doug has mentioned an 8-foot fence is illegal. 6-foot fence?
It's not in the city.
Let's go back to Dave on that. Don't go far, Kevin.
Dave Fanslaw, City Planning. 6-foot fence.
6-foot fence.
It's not within city limits, but it's obviously within our zoning jurisdiction. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that clarification. All right, back to Kevin.
Don't ask me to do anything illegal, frankly.
Okay, all right. If, of course, you know that if the traffic warrant it, you'll have to, and it's your development that makes it a warranted situation, that you'll have to help pay for the left.
We understand that.
Okay.
We've been, that's happened in other developments we've done.
Okay, I got a couple other questions for you. I can ask, you can say yes or no. 3 rows of trees versus 2?
We can do 3 rows if it's on this section only.
On the Pacific side?
On the Pacific side, yes.
Okay. Bless you, sir. I thought you were going to say no.
Well,
Thank you.
That's an easy deal. We have,
Okay.
Yeah, we like trees.
3 trees, all right.
Trees are our friend.
Couple of other things here. My understanding is that you had a death in the family last week?
I did. My brother-in-law had passed away after 25 years of suffering from multiple sclerosis.
So you were hoping for a Thursday or Friday meeting, but that threw your schedule off?
We were hoping for a Thursday or Friday. I offered to meet Monday evening, and I'd sent that to one of the Ridges representatives, and I did explain what we were going to present today. I really didn't believe that going from a 25-plex here to 2 11s was a major change, but only to their benefit, to the opposition's benefit. So I didn't think that was of huge consequence. But I wasn't contacted back to, I made myself available for a meeting on Monday evening, but due to the death in the family, couldn't meet Thursday or Friday. I was a pallbearer at the funeral. So Monday was thrown out there, but I wasn't taken up on that offer.
Okay. Talk to me about the southeast building and the grading question that came up.
I would have to probably defer that to Doug. Doug is our land designer.
Come on up, Doug. You have to introduce yourself again. Yes. And just, Kevin, just stay up there with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doug Halverson, 2111 South 67th Street. Here it is. Okay. So this graphic is, again, it's a crude representation of the scale. We're showing it in 5-foot contours here. When I say flat, there's no such thing as flat, But what happens is that across each of those buildings, I can have a 2% grade. So in 2 feet, or in 100 feet, I can drop 2 feet. That garage, you're going to drive up into it, and this garage, you'll be driving straight in. So there's that grade change across there. Across this distance, I can easily make up 6 and 8 feet. Okay, but when I'm saying that this thing is going to be graded flat, that's what I mean. So there's still going to be a grade change here. but it's going to happen at the edge of that building.
Okay.
It's not going to be 10 feet, but there'll still be a grade change there.
About how many do you think?
You know, and depends on where you measure it. If you measure it from 50, this is still going to be elevation 55 to 60. It's still going to be 10 feet up.
Okay.
It's just, this is the absolute low point. This point and that point are going to be equal.
Okay.
This point and that point are going to be equal.
Okay. You can go ahead and take your seats, and I don't know, there may be another button on or not, but I'd like to say to the citizens, to the constituents, that this is a balancing act for you, because if we do vote this down, another developer can come in with 205, and I have to warn you that there was enough votes on this council to pass the 205. Now, I did some things the last time to get you some advantage, but had we voted on it the last time, it would have passed at 205. So I doubt whether voting this down is in your best interest, because if you do, it sends a certain message to my colleagues that perhaps, the 130 wasn't enough, and so it's really a balancing act that you have to think about. You have to think about what the city is allowed to do, what the developers are allowed to do, and what this council will view as reasonable. I like the statement that was from Ms. Ramsey, in that this is somewhat of a stunning transformation, because most of the time we don't see this. We don't see this kind of effort on developers to make this much concessions. And so if this doesn't work, then that sets up a whole 12 more projects after this to kind of have a different outcome. So on one hand, we want to say that the things that you want are not unreasonable, but our job is to balance both sides and to find out what a good compromise is. I'd have to say that even though there are some things that you're asking for that are reasonable, that this may be the best that you can get. And having said that, I think it's in your best interest, and I think it's in the best interest of future developments working with neighborhoods to go ahead and move the approval. Now, I like to move the approval subject to a floor amendment, and the floor amendment is being proposed to achieve City Council approval for a planned unit development, a PUD overlay, to accompany the rezoning and final plat, and we request providing no more than 130. I think, Madam Clerk, it says 133, but that's right. 130 units, and that all the units be no more than 2 stories in height, except for the one that's on the northeast corner, and which may be no more than 3 stories in height. And that, so in other words, we won't pass the PUD, we won't pass the final plat unless the PUD has gone through its okays with the planning department, planning board, and then we'll have final oversight over that. I'd like to just put that forward, and if anybody else has a comment or a question, feel free. Other than that, I think it's good to go with a second here and then move on.
There's a motion with the floor amendments. No further lights. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
The amendment is approved 7-0. We need to adopt the resolution as amended.
You need to adopt the resolution.
As amended?
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7E, agenda item number 14 shall be laid over 2 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, agenda item numbers 15 through 16 shall be laid over 3 weeks to June 10, 2014 for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7E, agenda item number 17 shall be laid over 2 weeks. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, agenda item numbers 18 through 22 shall be laid over 3 weeks to June 10, 2014. Liquor. Item 23 is Jackson Street Tavern, LLC, DBA Jackson Street Tavern, 1125 Jackson Street, for an addition to their present Class C liquor license, location of an outdoor area approximately 10 feet by 23 feet. It's over from May 13th.
Public hearing on number 23 is today. Are there any proponents?
Roger Broderson, 17135 County Road 15, Herman, Nebraska. I am a partner at the Jack Street Tavern, and I want to apologize for having to do this twice because I was here last week and didn't recognize the necessity of coming forward.
Sorry about the confusion.
Deke Reichert, 4730 South 99th Circle, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you.
I'm the chef.
All right. You're the grill sergeant, too, it looks like.
Yes.
Any other proponents that want to speak? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's approved 7-0.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Item 24 is the application of Okinawa Sushi and Grill Incorporated for a Class C liquor license at 12240 L Street.
Public hearing on number 24 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, my name is Zon, and I'm with Okinawa Sushi and Grill. We are located at 12240 L Street, Suite 101, Omaha, Nebraska 68137. And we are a old location with new applications, and we are serving wine, liquor, and beer for sole service liquor license. And if any of you have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President.
Yes.
The application's granted 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 25
Thank you.
is the application of Mario Bella Enterprises LLC for a Class I liquor license at 13110 Birch Drive, Suite 100. It's a new application, old location.
Public hearing on number 25 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, I'm Wendy Ritchie, and I'm the partner for Mario Bella Enterprises, doing business as Zerlo's Italian Restaurant. And we are asking for just a continuation of a current license that's already in existence.
Thank you. Other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President.
Yes.
The license is granted 7-0. Item 26 is the application of Tong Yin Incorporated, DBA China Garden Restaurant for a Class I license at 8315 Tangier Way. New application, old location, or new location.
Public hearing on number 26 is today. Are there any proponents?
My name is Chung Su from 15817 Rolling Ridge Road. We serving just normal Chinese cuisine restaurant. Previous owner used to have a liquor license, but we decided not to serve alcohol beverage for a while. But now we changed. We would like to serve alcoholic beverage ASAP.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think your restaurant had a nice article written about in the World Herald, did it not, recently?
What about this, sir?
There's an article in the newspaper about how great your restaurant was or is.
Article. Well, I didn't see that.
Okay.
If not, maybe there should be, huh?
There is. I know there was.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson? Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President?
Yes.
The application is granted 7-0. Item 27 is Denrod Corporation, DBA I Don't Care Bar and Grill, 3346 North 108th Street, for a change of location for their present Class I liquor license to be located at 15244 West Maple Road.
Public hearing on number 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Denise Bredmeyer, 5424 North Oaks Boulevard, Omaha, 68134.
Thank you. Other proponents, please. Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Melton?
One question, I'm sure we're all wondering it. How did you come up with the name I Don't Care Bar and Grill?
Well, whenever your spouse says, "Where do you want to go?" what do you usually say?
Oh, I don't. I like that.
Right?
That's very true. I don't care.
I don't care. That's
I don't think
that's where you can go.
I don't think Amy says that.
That's probably true.
Does that work for movies, too?
No.
That doesn't work for movies, does it?
Just food.
No, I like it. I think I'm going to definitely have to come out and check that out. You're not far from me, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Where are you going in? Right off 154th?
And it's going into a strip mall. It was the old alter ego, Manhattan's Prestige.
Got it. Now I know exactly where you're going to be. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President?
Yes.
It's approved
Thank you.
7-0.
Thanks.
Item 28 is ANS Incorporated, DBA 13th Street Brick House, 2202 South 13th Street. Request permission for a special designated license for a beer garden on June 14, 2014, from 2 o'clock p.m. to 2 o'clock a.m. with music until midnight.
Public hearing on number 28 is today. Proponents, please.
My name is Barb Crum, 4910 South 30th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68107.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson? Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President?
Yes. Thank you.
It's approved 7-0. Item 29 is YFC and Jerem Pat. You Pat? I apologize. I didn't hear. Councilmember Jerem passed due to potential conflict. Item 21, YFC Incorporated, 1124 North Happy Hollow Boulevard. Request permission for a special designated license for a music festival at Stinson Park, 6707 Center Street on August 16, 2014, from 11 o'clock a.m. to 12 o'clock midnight with music until midnight.
Public hearing on number 29 is today. Proponents, please. Mr. Bashir and head Maha promoter.
Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for your time this afternoon. I am here. I'm joined by my fellow board members, Aaron Shaddy and Pat Lejeune. My address is 6336 John J. Pershing Drive. I am here on behalf of YFC Inc., doing business as the Omaha Music Festival, seeking your permission for both our liquor license and permission to broadcast amplified music until midnight on the night of the festival. And we're happy to answer any questions the council has.
Thank you. Other proponents that want to speak? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, I just want to commend you on you running a great operation. The past 2 years, we had 2 complaints total, and each year was the same person, and that person's moved. So I think you're doing a good job, and I hear lots of good feedback. But I forget the name of the headliner last year that closed. What was the name of that person who had like the mannequin and it was really got weird at the end there?
The lead singer is Wayne Coyne, and that's who you're referring to. The band is the Flaming Lips.
That's right. And what do you think happened there with that whole partner of his? That
I wouldn't
we don't have time today to probably wander into how that all came to be.
Did the American make it back to Oklahoma City safe?
Yes. I can say with absolute certainty that this year's headliner, the Death Cab for Cutie, is much more mainstream and accessible, and we feel very good about that. It'll be a not at all baby-oriented doll type show this year. So
yeah, I'm not complaining. I just couldn't figure out what the heck was going on with the.
Those are questions that only Mr. Coyne can answer.
But it seemed as though you had a record attendance.
We did, absolutely. The attendance has grown each year. People have been very supportive. We used to be on the landing, and due to flooding in 2011, we had to move. Our crowd has just loved Stinson Park. They love the facility. The merchants are very welcoming to us. With the parking garages there, everything has worked out very well. Each year, our attendance has grown by about 1,000. We expect our biggest crowd by far this year. We've increased our talent budget markedly over last year because we do try and keep growing the festival, and that's part of our mission is to make sure that it's becoming an economic development vehicle for the community. About 20% of our attendees last year came from out of state. 40% were from outside of Douglas County. So we do think that we're doing a good job of bringing in some additional revenue to the community that wouldn't otherwise exist, and we appreciate the support of the council and the merchants and the neighbors and everyone. So this is a community effort, and we're all volunteers, much to our family's dismay, and it's a labor of love for all of us.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job, and there's a lot of excitement about it, and it continues to grow, and hopefully this year you get great weather again and have a terrific time.
Great weather, absolutely. Thank you.
Sir, will you please identify yourself for the record?
Trey Brashear, 6336 John J. Pershing Drive.
Thank you.
Second.
And I would say it is a labor of love, and I think it is great for the community, so we appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think one of the neat things about the last couple of years, too, is that more and more people are bringing their kids to attend because it is a nice outside atmosphere with great music, and that's a sign, too, of I think, a well-run event. So I know I'll have my kids out there this year.
Glad to hear it.
All right. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next time you see your dad, tell him I still have a lot of respect for him as a speaker.
I will be sure and tell him. Thank you.
All right. Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It's approved 7-0.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed therefrom. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise taken out of order as otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order. The public hearings on agenda item numbers 30 through 34 were held on May 13, 2014.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President?
Yes.
The ordinances were passed 7-0.
Public hearings on agenda items number 35 through 51 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, I'll make a motion to approve. You can second it. I just wanted to make a comment on item 48. That's the reappointment of Jennifer Taylor to the Omaha Housing Authority. She wanted me to convey to this council, first of all, that she was very appreciative of our consideration, hopes that we can continue to move forward, and just let me say for the record that as many of you know, the Omaha Housing Authority was in deep trouble a few years ago. We managed to get through that. We're in a fairly solid place now with the Omaha Housing Authority, and a lot of that, a good portion of that is due to Commissioner Taylor's involvement and then later on her chairmanship. So I would encourage also to continue supporting her, and I just wanted to thank her as well publicly for her efforts to continue to move the Omaha Housing Authority forward.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, and just to add on what was said, thanks to the mayor's office for understanding that this is the right person, too. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I call for a vote, I'd also note on number 36 we talked about this morning on consent agenda is the next step towards the renovation of the Benson Business District that we're working on will be to final engineering with this contract this summer and fall for bid this winter and on track for construction 2015. So we're excited about that too. Roll call.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Gurnett. Gray.
Yes.
Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
The resolutions are adopted, 7-0. Item 52 is a resolution to approve the 1915 Jackson Street Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project located at 1915 Jackson Street, recommending the city's participation to the allocation of TIF in an amount of $400,000 to offset TIF eligible cost. It's over from 4/29/14 for publication and public hearing, and it had publication.
Public hearing on number 52 is today. Proponents, please. Ms. Hadley.
Good afternoon. Bridget Hadley, City Planning. Before you is a project that represents redevelopment of a vacant property, the former Fisher Fixture Company building at 1915 Jackson Street. This is a part of downtown, that has seen very little reinvestment over the last few years, characterized by several different businesses, but also characterized by a lot of surface lots, as you can see. This particular project proposes to have Catering Creations, which is an off-site catering business as well as event planning business that is currently located around 75th and Pacific, relocate to this particular building. They're proposing to completely rehab it and convert it into their new headquarters. Their current space right now is very, very limited in terms of size, and so that limits them in terms of growth and their opportunities certainly for on-site catering. They've been searching for several years, at least 3 years, for a site, and they settled on this particular location. This particular location not only allows them to continue with their existing operations, but it allows for business expansion. Their business model would expand to a decor division, as well as ballroom rentals for various types of ballroom activities. This project also represents economic development in terms of business investment into the area and job creation, up to about 21 full-time job equivalents. Most of those are in the catering side of it, as well as 2 of those are the administrative side. This is got a few pictures here so that you can see what it looks like. This is what it actually looks like from Google, and then this is another view of it. And here are a couple of renderings of what they propose that it could look like on the inside. So right now, and I've had a chance to tour the building, it is very open space. They would convert this into ballroom activities, and then over to the left, which you cannot see, and toward the front and left and right, they would create into office and conference rooms and wine tasting areas. I got another one here. So this is just another view coming from the front of the building. So this particular project, which is really great to see this kind of activity in this part, the southwest part of downtown, helps to discontinue blight in that particular area, helps to restore the tax revenues to this particular, as a result of this property being redeveloped that was vacant. It's been vacant for about 1.5 years, creating long-term employment, representing business expansion, as well as business investment, and it will help create synergies for additional redevelopment in this particular area. As mentioned, it's up to $400,000 in TIF, with $15,000 of that TIF being used for public improvements in the general area, and then represents about a little over $3 million in investments. The owner was not able to make it here, but a representative of the owner is here. If you have any other questions, I would otherwise ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? See none. Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Pauls.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a question. I don't know if anybody has tried to find a place to have quote, a big party in this town. It's hard because so many of them are already booked. When I looked at the map, I know they said they anticipate a seating of 300 and standing room for 500. Is there enough parking around there?
There's plenty of parking. There are a lot of the surface lots that I kind of vaguely pointed to that are north, so across the street from St. Mary's, as well as there's a surface lot that is directly east of this property. So they have a lot of choices in terms of parking arrangements that the owners can make with those owners of those surface lots.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton? Pauls? Thompson? Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Durham? Mr. President.
Yes.
Resolution's adopted 7-0. Item 15 is the resolution approving the Flatiron Building tax increment, 53. Flatiron Building tax increment financing redevelopment project plan located at 1722 St. Mary's Avenue, recommending the city's participation through the allocation of TIF in the amount of $876,000 to offset TIF eligible cost. It's over from 4/29/14 for publication and public hearing. Had publication.
Public hearing on number 53 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon again. Bridget Hadley, City Planning. This particular project represents the preservation of a historic building, the Flatiron Building in downtown Omaha, as well as the repurposing of that particular building. This is the site right here, a little triangular-like shaped building, and many are, I'm sure, already familiar with the building, but here are just a couple of pictures of the existing property.
Hold that microphone towards you.
Sorry. So here are some photos of the building as it exists right now. And then this is looking from the triangular point. So as I mentioned, this represents the repurposing and the preservation of this particular property. As noted in the write-up, there was a TIF on this project in 1980, and that TIF was solely used for public improvements around the property. It was not used for the building. This time around, the TIF is used for the building to repurpose it, especially floors 2 through 4, which are currently office, and converting them to apartment units, market rate apartment units. There will be 30 apartment units. And because this is zone CBD, there are no parking requirements. And just, let me have a better picture. Here is the parking lot that the owners of the Flatiron Building already own. So they make this parking available to their tenants of the building. And so there are more than 30 there. But they have the option to, offer total of 30 for their tenants or less, because there are no parking requirements. And again, many tenants in the downtown area, or oftentimes tenants do not have cars. They may be biking, so they may not need a parking space. So, but we're satisfied that they meet the requirements or the parking needs of that particular project. So the current tenants that are there are the Bath and Tile Company. They will remain there, but they will also expand into an additional space. And then, of course, the Flatiron restaurant that the restaurant that cafe that we're all familiar with will remain there. So this particular project, it definitely continues revitalization in this part of the downtown area. So we're starting to see more reinvestment in this particular area. Utilizes a property that was partially vacant, and then definitely helps to continue the preservation and repurposes a historic property. It is up to $876,000 in TIF, with about $15,000 of that going toward improvements, public improvements in the general area. And it is an investment of a little over $5 million. So with that, I would ask for your approval. And we do have a representative of the owner here if you have any additional questions, but I would ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Jerem.
Yes, it seems as though, we keep talking about this, but sometimes the council hears from people who are concerned that we're not doing enough to preserve older or historic buildings. And I've been pointing out recently each time one comes before the council so that when you hear those things, you can point to now a growing list of examples of where the council goes to extraordinary efforts and lengths to support those things when they make economic and viable sense to do that. And in this case, you have a historic building. It had already been granted TIF. The question is, the TIF, I presume, even though it was a small amount for public improvements last time, that was paid back, right?
Yes.
So there's no default on that TIF.
No default.
This time, the TIF will be primarily used on the interior of the building for restoration.
Exactly.
And you have a historic building that could probably take advantage now of the state historical tax credits as well.
It could. It could.
Okay.
It's not factored in, but it certainly could.
Just wanted to highlight that to my colleagues, because as we continue down this road and you continue to hear otherwise, you can now add this one to the list of the about 30 now that you have that are where we've done preservation.
Thank you. I appreciate, too, on both these as examples, a portion of that tax increment financing going to street improvements, too, and landscaping and things that make for a nice environment around these historic buildings and in our downtown, and I think both these will do that as well. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Jerem?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Mr. President, we can take items 54 through 56 together. Item 54 is a resolution approving the contract with McGinnis Roofing and Sheet Metal for OPW 52527SP, being the Omaha Public Safety Training Center Administration Building and Pump House roof replacement located at 11616 Ringwood Road in the amount of $191,208. Item number 55 is for the fire support building in the amount of $41,000. And item 56 is the canine roof replacement in the amount of $37,400. They're all over from May 13, 2014, and continue the public hearing.
Public hearings on 54, 55, and 56 are continued today. Any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearings are closed. Mr. Thompson.
Yes, for those of you out in TV land, the question was answered thoroughly. First of all, it was because of weather-related storm damage. And yes, we do have insurance. The cost for 40 units, 40 different roofs being damaged, is just under $1 million, of which we have a $100,000 deductible. And what we're paying today, we're taking out of the contingency fund, liability fund, but when the insurance pays back, this money goes back into that fund. The only thing that we're out of for 40 entire projects is $100,000, and that's a typical deductible. In fact, that's a pretty good deductible, to tell you the truth. But it wasn't because of faulty craftsmanship, but rather just this time of year, these types of things happen. So the staff did a good job of doing the research, and I move the approval.
Roll call.
Melton? Yes. Pauls? Thompson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Jerem? Mr. President.
Yes.
Resolutions are adopted 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, the third reading and public hearings on agenda item numbers 57 through 65 shall be held on June 3, 2014. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, the third readings on agenda item numbers 66 through 68 shall be held on June 3, 2014. The public hearings on these items are today. Ordinance is on second reading. Item 66 is an ordinance declaring necessity of appropriating for use of the City of Omaha certain hereinafter described vacant and improved properties located in the amended 18th and Locust Area Redevelopment Plan.
Public hearing on number 66 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 67 is special ordinance levying a special assessment for cutting and clearing weeds, grass, and worthless vegetation, group number 2014-06.
Public hearing on number 67 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 68, special levy ordinance. Special ordinance levying a special tax assessment for removal of litter, group number 2014-7.
Public hearing on number 68 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, the third reading and public hearings on agenda item numbers 69 through 74 shall be held on June 10, 2014. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7H, due to no meeting being held May 27, 2014, the second reading and public hearings on agenda item numbers 75 through 76 and item 78 on the supplement shall be held on June 3, 2014.
Motion adjourned.
Roll call.
Melton. Pauls. Thompson. Burnett. Gray.
Yes.
Jerem. Mr. President.
Yes.
For spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty.